When my youngest child was 3 months old, my beloved Uncle Norman passed away. He was my favorite of my grandmother's 6 brothers and sisters, and I had many fond childhood memories of him. His irreverent sense of humor always spiced up the typically dull family reunions. Uncle Norman lived to be 95 years old, so his death was by no means tragic, but I still felt melancholy and wanted very much to attend his funeral in Iowa. But my family lives in Colorado, and the idea of traveling 13 hours by car with them ranked right up there with enrolling in the Pap Smear of the Month Club. I decided to book a flight instead and leave my husband home with our 5-year-old. But my infant and I were attached at the breast, so she was not an optional carry-on item. Not only were we nursing, but this baby had refused to take a bottle under any circumstances. My desperate family members and I had tried everything. We purchased every different brand of bottle on the shelf, including the one theoretically designed to resemble a giant boob, to the simultaneous horror and delight of my oldest child. We experimented with different times of day, days of the week, and lunar phases, begging every relative, well-meaning visitor, and UPS guy to offer her a bottle. We altered the mood lighting, lit aromatherapy candles, and played ambient background music. But to no avail. Sophie preferred that her milk come directly from her obliging, sleep-deprived, unshowered personal dairy cow. Incidentally, the little tyrant never drank a drop from a bottle in her entire life. Her cunning avoidance tactics clearly indicate that she is destined for the 2017 Gifted and Talented program, or a life of crime. Which is how I found myself in the position every mother dreams about, flying solo across several states with an exclusively breastfed baby to attend a loved one's funeral. What could possibly go wrong? As soon as I informed my extended family that I would be making the trip to Iowa, my Aunt Jane requested that I sing with her at the service. As a classically trained soprano, I was honored to be able to perform a duet at Uncle Norman's funeral, but the prospect of the whole affair, from plane ride to performance, was daunting nonetheless. What if my layered nursing tank, flowy blouse travel strategy malfunctioned, and I accidentally sprayed breast milk on the disgruntled passenger seat next to me? What if Sophie had a noisy poop explosion in the middle of Amazing Grace? And what in God's name would I wear to the funeral? As I pondered whether it would be appropriate for me to perform my vocal number in a hand-me-down maternity muumuu, the solution finally dawned on me. My little black wrap dress, of course. It was the only classy item in my pre-baby wardrobe that would accommodate my bulging breasts and awkward, lumpy nursing bras. When the morning of the funeral arrived, I felt quite pleased with my appearance. The wrap dress fit perfectly, and I even paired it with a fashionable necklace I bought 10 years earlier during the premature apex of my stylishness. In order to prevent funereal mishaps, aided by my type A collaborator, aka my mom, I devised a foolproof plan. Step 1, nurse baby immediately prior to service. Step 2, baby will sleep quietly and happily in mommy's arms during eulogy and hymns, allowing mommy to listen with rapt attention and freeing Grammy's hands to dig in her purse for tissues. Step 3, mommy will seamlessly pass baby to Grammy and perform duet with Aunt Jane. Step 4, mommy will return to seat and take over baby duty. All is well. Well, you know what they say about intentions and the road to hell. There would be no peaceful napping during the funeral. A few days earlier, Sophie had discovered her voice. As one of my cousins began to share a moving story about a grandfather-father-son trip they took to Europe to retrace Uncle Norman's World War II service, Sophie began to vocalize loudly. The noises bursting forth from her tiny mouth resembled ululations from an army of deranged farm animals. I hastily stood up from my seat. unwilling to subject any of my weeping family members to the inappropriate soundtrack of my shrieking, delighted child reverberating through the church's excellent acoustics. I was well aware that my duet was mere minutes away, and I couldn't actually leave the sanctuary with my noisy baby. I was stuck. We stood as far back as possible, me making shushing noises as I tried to hide behind the sound booth. I could hear the men speaking earnestly at the front of the pews, and the sounds of muffled sobbing echoed throughout the room. I was sweating. Sophie, still gyrating with enthusiasm, grabbed a handful of my ultra-hip necklace, and my plan began to unravel, literally. My daughter's chubby fist tugged harder, and my necklace clattered to the ground, beads dropping everywhere. Well, shit, so much for my stylish accessory. Now, what would handle the anxiety rash that I could feel spreading against my neck and collarbone? As I fumbled to unwind the ruined chain from my neck, I shifted Sophie to the other hip. This time, she grabbed hold of the long tie of my wrap dress, and she tugged. My wrap dress, the so-called perfect garment for a nursing mom, began to come untied. I stood in the back of the sanctuary, heart pounding, broken necklace in one hand, baby perched precariously with the other, my dress beginning to fall open. I gestured frantically to the sound guy sitting in the nearby booth. "My baby untied my dress," I hissed. "Can you hold her?" The millennial techie was visibly frazzled, but he had no choice but to oblige me. He nodded somberly, grasping the fact that the dignity of this operation rested on his shoulders, and held her stiffly away from his body. I dropped the remnants of my necklace into a pew and got to work. Damn it, I'd spent nearly 20 minutes tugging and patting my wrap dress into flattering submission, devoting great attention to cleavage control, and it was all for nothing. But these were desperate times, and I retied my wrap dress as quickly as possible, hoping I had at the very least adequately arranged my girls. Nothing ruins a funeral quicker than flashing your ginormous leaky boobs at a room full of grieving octogenarians. I gratefully retrieved my gleeful mischief maker, and the sound guy let out an audible sigh of relief as I returned quietly to my seat. I had pulled it off with just seconds to spare. Our duet went beautifully, and the service concluded without further incident. Sophie redeemed herself during the traditional Lutheran church reception. She was a source of comfort and delight as mourning family members passed her around. As I got back on the plane the next day, I grudgingly realized that my saboteur had given me the most fitting memory to take away from the weekend. Uncle Norman would have loved that story.